Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
Some people do stupid things. Don't do stupid things. You are about to hear my opinion. Do your own research.
Forget Adam and Eve. These creation myths are on a whole different level of weird. From cosmic eggs to self-eating gods, here are the strangest origin stories from around the world. In ancient Chinese myth, the universe started inside a giant egg. Inside, the god Pangu slept for 18,000 years. When he finally woke up, he cracked the egg open, creating the sky and earth with his body. In Maori mythology, the Sky Father Ranginui and Earth Mother Papatuanuku were locked in an eternal hug. Their children lived in darkness between them until they forced them apart to create light. In Hindu myth, the universe began with Brahma, who literally created himself out of nothing. Then he grew a lotus out of his belly, split himself in half, male and female, and created everything else. The Egyptian god Atum stood on the first mound of land and, get this, sneezed and spat out the gods Shu and Tefnut, literally coughed up creation. So whether it's cracking eggs, separating parents, or sneezing out gods, humanity's been trying to explain existence in the weirdest, wildest ways possible.
I'm not a huge fan of the tone set in that clip, like, oh, these things are ridiculous and outlandish and crazy, and that's the tone that was put forth for that. Everybody has their own different religion, and everybody thinks that every other, creation theory may be a little out there because they're set in their own beliefs. Just like I believe we crawled out of the water from like single cell organisms that learned how to do stuff, and now look at us, But and some people would think that's weird, but I don't like calling other people's religious beliefs crazy and outlandish and weird and stuff like that. That's just that's what they believe, and that's cool.
Strangest things in history that really happened. So back in 1915, a woman from South Carolina named Essie Dunbar suffered an epileptic seizure that caused her to collapse and quit breathing. A doctor was summoned and he checked Essie for a pulse, and he declared her deceased. Soon after that, Essie's family arranged for a quick funeral. The funeral was held at a local church. Essie's body was placed in a wooden coffin and lowered into her grave, as mourners gathered around to pay their respects. The problem is, while all this was going on, Essie's sister was out of town, which made her late for the services. By the time she got there, Essie's coffin had already been placed into the grave and covered with dirt. When Essie's sister realized that Essie had already been buried, she begged the three presiding ministers to give her one last chance to see her sister's face. The three preachers collectively sighed, and they agreed. So they dug Essie up and hauled the coffin back to the surface. Then they unscrewed the lid and unsealed the coffin. That's when all hell broke loose. That's because Essie Dunbar sat straight up in her coffin and smiled at everyone. People began screaming and running for their lives. The three preachers got knocked over into the grave. Two of them trampled the third one, breaking several of that priest's ribs. Things grew even worse after that, when Essie climbed out of her coffin and began chasing after the mourners who were all running away from her, thinking Essie was a zombie. Even after that, it took some convincing for some of the locals to believe that Essie wasn't a zombie. Essie Dunbar went on to live for another 47 years until finally passing away in May of 1962 at age 77. This time was for keeps. At least I think it was.
That is absolutely wild. I know there was a period in time back before, modern medicine became more advanced in knowing things that the heart does and breathing and whatnot, that there was quite a few people that were actually buried alive, and they would be dug up later and find that they scratched on the coffin. I know that for a long time there was like keepers at the cemetery, and what they did was they had a bell on the surface and they ran a string down into the coffin so that the person can ring the bell if they, were still alive, and they can quickly dig them up. But that's a super fantastic story.
In order for Charles to be coronated as the King of Great Britain, they have to take a rock from Scotland down to England and put it in Westminster Abbey. Here's why, and why they may have the wrong rock. So last year, Dr. Elizabeth, Jennifer, my sister, and my mom and I all went to Scotland, and we visited Scone. And Scone is where they always crown the kings of Scotland. That day I did this little sketch of the gate that you come through to enter onto the palace ground. And just to the right of that gate is this very, very old church. This is a little sketch I did that day of the abbey and the Stone of Destiny, or the Scone Stone. And that's what we're talking about. Here's how the coronation of a Scottish king went. He would sit on the Stone of Destiny, and then all the lords of Scotland would come to Scone, and they would swear allegiance to them. And how they did it is they would take some of the dirt from their land and put it in their boots and then bring it all the way with them to Scone. And then they would kneel in front of him and pour out the dirt on the ground in front of him. And that way, when he was crowned not only the King of Scotland, but the king over their land. This continued until Edward I invaded Scotland and defeated them in 1296, and he was tired of Scottish kings, so he took the Stone of Destiny back to England and he put it in Westminster Abbey. Did it so they couldn't crown any more Scottish kings. And it stayed there until Christmas Day 1950, when 4 Scottish students broke into Westminster Abbey in the middle of the night and stole the stone. Cops were after them. So they went into a field and they buried the stone to hide it, returning later to get it. But in the process, they broke the stone. Actually, they got the Stone of Destiny back into Scotland, but they were in trouble and they knew it. So they contacted a Glasgow politician, and he took the stone from them. And because it was broken, he got a local stonemason by the name of Robert Gray to repair the stone. The stone was then taken to Arbroath Abbey and was left on the altar. Now, Arbroath Abbey is a Church of Scotland church, but the King of England is over the Church of Scotland. So it was taken back down to Westminster Abbey, where it stayed until 1996. And in 1996, there was this movement to recognize Scottish history, and so the Queen allowed the stone to be taken back up to Edinburgh, Scotland, and stored there until it's time to crown the next king. And so this week, they started to move the stone out of Edinburgh and back to Westminster Abbey. During the coronation, that stone will be put under the throne of England. So when Charles sits on it, he's not only going to be sitting on the throne of England, he's also going to be sitting atop the Stone of Destiny for Scotland, symbolizing that he is being crowned as king over Scotland as well as England. Very symbolic. It's a lot like the Lords of Scotland, who would bring the dirt in their boots to lay at the feet of the Scottish king. And this is all proper and symbolic, but they may have the wrong stone. I used to live in Scotland, and I was told this story many, many times, and all the Scottish people would tell me that they think that Robert Gray made a duplicate of the stone and gave the duplicate to the British crown, and that the real Stone of Destiny remains in Scotland. And if that's true, Charles is going to be sitting on the wrong stone. One other interesting fact, the Stone of Destiny that all Scottish kings have been crowned on, they don't know where it comes from. They don't know why. They don't know why the kings all started on it. It's got like this metal piece embedded into it with a loop on it. Nobody knows why. They just know that that's how it's always been done, and so that's how they're going to keep on doing it.
So a member of our community, I'm going to botch this, Kula Monks, suggested we take a look at this, and I had never heard of it before, and I think that is absolutely crazy. So some kids just freaking stole this rock, and they don't know if it's the actual rock that it's supposed to be, because it was broken. And that's super cool. Obviously, the coronation has already gone off without a hitch, and King Charles is king, and it's all been done. But was it on a fake rock? That's a really cool story. I love historical stories like that. Yeah, and that's fantastic. I'm so glad we got to learn about that, and I'm going to learn a little bit more, and if I find something else cool, I'm going to bring it to you.
Have direwolves actually been brought back from extinction after 10,000 years? Because biosciences company Colossal claims to have de-extincted an animal for the first time in history. They've unveiled 3 pups, Romulus, Remus and Khaleesi. Note the Game of Thrones reference. Now this is huge. Direwolves were these massive canines with white coats that were wiped out from the Americas. But by getting hold of ancient DNA found in fossils like a 72,000-year-old inner ear bone, Colossal has been able to identify genes that differ from their closest living relative, the grey wolf. This then allowed them to edit the grey wolf genome to bring about changes that influence things like coat colour, size, and muscular structure, creating these animals that, yeah, look like direwolves. But notice the word look. These animals are not a complete genetic match. They are kind of mutated grey wolves. Scientists say there is still room for millions of base pair differences between their DNA, and some are questioning if they can be true direwolves without being raised in a pack and learning from each other's behaviour. They are being kept in a reserve and are being constantly observed. Colossal's chief scientific officer literally said they can't get a splinter without us knowing about it. Whether you believe a genuinely extinct animal has been brought back to life comes down to how you define a species. But you have to admit, the genetic engineering is impressive. What do you make of it?
So, some of you know, some of you may not know, I did my very first live stream and it was probably quite a train wreck. I was all over the place, and that's how I am normally, all of the time. But we talked about the dire wolves and how they're not actually dire wolves, and how this is, actually I talked about it because I monopolized the whole time, but I talked about how the dire wolves are not actually dire wolves. They're just gray wolves with some genetic mutations, and how it is an absolute waste of funding to be bringing back animals that have gone extinct. Now, when you think about how predator and prey balances are in nature, they balance themselves out when left to their own devices. And we are undoing that because we can, when we should be doing more responsible things with this money, this funding, and this time, and this expertise, and the science. Yet, we're not. So I think that the whole direwolves thing is like, yay, good job, you did something really cool, but how is that going to help people? It's really not, because now they're going to start bringing back other things that should not be brought back. So that's my opinion on it. What do you think?
This will be the scariest thing that you see all week. If you've ever wondered if funeral homes are haunted, I'm getting ready to answer that question for you. Yes. When I watched this video for the first time, it literally gave me chills. I'm going to get out of the way and just roll the footage when I do, and it's a security camera from inside a chapel of a funeral home. It's you can see the chairs sitting around. A security guard is making his rounds. Something caught his attention, either a noise, he seen something, so you can see him. It's black and white, night vision. You can see him looking around, but what happens next is mind-blowing. Watch this footage. Let me know in the comments what you think it is. I think demon 100%. If you have any evidence you'd like to share, my email's listed in my bio. Check this out.
No, I don't think that was a ghost. Obviously, I don't think that was a ghost. I think that was a little bit, okay, let's see if I can do it. So we go like this, and then we go like that, right? That's BS, right? In sign language, I'm pretty sure that's what I learned that it was. I may be doing it backwards, I don't know, but yeah, I think that's BS. I think somebody just had their kid at work with them that night, and they're like, hey, let's put this up as paranormal. And I don't think it was. I think it was. Yeah.
The real problem is the men who think they can control monsters, who stare into the abyss long enough to convince themselves they can weaponize it. That's how the hunters were born. They weren't a product of one government or a single agency. They were a compromise, forged in darkness. After World War II, when the world realized conventional warfare had limits, the surviving powers began looking elsewhere, digging through cult archives, decoding ancient symbols pulled from burnt-out catacombs, dissecting corpses that didn't bleed red. They called it Project Asylum. But it wasn't about sanctuary. It was about binding the uncontainable. The hunters were the result. Built in secret, trained in silence, forged in nightmares. They're not listed anywhere.
Okay, based on the subtitle on there, that looks like it's like a movie. And that looks like a totally freaking awesome movie. I didn't know that's what it was going to be. It just looked really cool. And now I think I'm going to have to go and see if that is a movie, because I'd totally watch that.
Since initial deployment in 2006 under the guise of a joint DARPA Wildlife Service research initiative, ISUs have been re-engineered to mimic common household and environmental insect species. Each unit is equipped with micro-optical audio sensors, nano-movement calibration for realism, and limited AI scripting to replicate behavioral idiosyncrasies observed in their organic counterparts. Over 36,000 mechanized units are actively in use across North America under Operation Veilwing. Public discourse regarding government bugs has been deemed non-actionable due to its categorization as conspiracy theory by mainstream platforms, ensuring plausible deniability remains intact. Please advise if escalation to avian surveillance prototypes, Project Skymark, should proceed in Q4. End memo classified. Do not duplicate. The intricate world of ISUs continues to evolve, blurring the lines between nature and technology as they redefine surveillance in the modern age. In the shadows, these units operate silently, gathering information that shapes policies and perceptions without ever being noticed.
So I have a chicken or egg question. Did flies on the wall that spy on us come first, or did the saying, "Oh, to be a fly on the wall," come first? I don't know. But DARPA's definitely way ahead of us, and they've got all kinds of cool technology that we will probably never know about. And they probably do have little surveillance flies and birds and stuff like that. I do believe birds are real, but I do believe there's also a possibility that some of them are not.
What we're here to talk about today is the fact that the brain is and will be the 21st century battlescape in many ways. End of story. You will encounter some form of neurocognitive science that has been weaponized not only in your military career, but in your personal and professional lives. It is valid, valuable, and already in operational play. The brain is the current and future battle space. What's new about this is the in-close nature of this. Increasingly, we're not seeing these things as weapons of mass destruction against gross aspects of the population. More specifically, perhaps, might be targeting individuals on a level that allows either direct attribution or covert engagement with non-attribution. Formal definition of a weapon, probably the one that you've heard about most recently, most contemporaneously in the literature, is the possibility to use some form of directed energy to affect physiology peripherally and also to affect the physiology and health of the brain. Case in point here, U.S. Embassy personnel in Havana and possibly in China. Clearly, one of the things we can also do is transcranial neuromodulation, the idea of going through the skull to modulate the node and network activity of the brain, to implant certain brain-machine interfaces. These are many of the DARPA programs that you may hear of now. Probably the one that is most notorious is something called the N3 program, which is the non-invasive neurosurgical neuromodulation program being run by their program manager, Dr. Al Mundy. The idea here is to put minimal-sized electrodes in a network within a brain through only minimal intervention to be able to read and write into the brain function in real time, remotely. And by affecting the way that brain is built and the way it functions, influence in ways that are kinetic and non-kinetic. The attitudes, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, activities. Look at the power that understanding, tools, and techniques of the brain sciences afford.
All right, so here's where my conspiracy brain goes with this. A lot of people say that that's why we have so many of these 5G towers, that they're trying to control us or push us in one direction or another. Now, I link it in with Big Pharma and the American Health Association telling everybody, hey, low fat, low fat, low fat, which we discussed in the live chat, and I've said many times before is not good for your brain because you have that myelin sheath around your brain. But if it's degraded because you're not consuming the fuel that it needs to continue to be a good thing on your brain, and then you start taking the high cholesterol medication, it does weaken that, which allows susceptibility to the brain. Now, I don't know if that's 100% at all, because I literally just thought it as I was watching that, and I put a whole bunch of things together, but I mean, sometimes these things just fall together almost a little too perfectly, don't they?
So I can't say it, but I'm telling you, I know what's going to happen next. how much metal you have in your body will affect you when this thing happens. It has to do with frequency. Okay, so that I stay safe, that I can come back, and I stay alive, I want to tell you something. I will give you a hint to what he showed me. It's going to happen, and you have to get rid of these metals in your body. And it could happen tomorrow. It could happen, but they're going to say it's something else. You're going to have to do your own thinking about this. I don't want to get in trouble, but just stick a piece of foil in a microwave, and picture that in your body.
Okay, now that doesn't sound terrifying at all. Have you seen foil in the microwave? It's all... And how are they getting these materials into our bodies? Probably through the food that we ingest. There's always little micrometals and stuff like that. And personally, I have plates and screws in my back, and that doesn't sound pleasant, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But it's brilliant. It's evil, but brilliant.
This video is for entertainment purposes only. I am L.A. Marzulli, and I want to talk about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Is it real? You know, too many people have seen this thing. Way too many people have seen this thing. In fact, the numbers of Sasquatch go up. They don't go down. The number of sightings continue to go through the roof. Here's the deal. Are these entities modern-day Nephilim? Are they the Therion that we read about in the book of Revelation? In other words, Therion, the beasts of the earth. The late Russ Dizdar used to talk about the Therion and say, whatever they are, they're not hamsters and giraffes. So what are we looking at? Why is it that these entities can basically go through space and time as we know it? They seem to be interdimensional. That was the work of the late Scott Carpenter. Anyway, folks, I think these are the beasts of the earth, and they are growing. The population is growing. Thanks for watching. I am L.A. Marzulli.
It's so cool that I selected all of these clips yesterday for this episode, and we talked about a lot of this stuff. I know some of it that I brought up, but some of it I did not. But we talked about this on the live stream, and that's another cool theory, that they are the beasts of the earth. And I explained my theory that I think that they are the beings that were here, and they didn't get messed with when there was that gap in our evolution, and suddenly, you know, we became what we are now. And those are the beings that didn't get tinkered with, and they continued to evolve as they were supposed to evolve naturally on this planet, and that's what Bigfoot is. And that's what I think. Even though I don't necessarily believe that Bigfoot is a real thing, I just think that if it is, that's what they are.
Elon Musk always talked about taking humanity to Mars, making us a multiplanetary species, and taking the next big step in our evolution. But suddenly, everything changed. No explanations, no announcements. He just stopped talking about colonizing Mars. The question is, why? And the answer is terrifying. Recently, a NASA rover exploring Mars sent back some disturbing images. It wasn't just a rock or a shadow misinterpreted. It was something alive. Not a massive, monstrous creature, but something small and far more dangerous. Leaked reports suggest this organism has the ability to replicate uncontrollably. Scientists estimate that if it ever reached Earth, humanity would have a maximum of 3 weeks before completely losing control.
Catches his eye. A large formation protruding from the surface of the planet that displays extraordinary symmetry.
Elon Musk saw the images and understood the threat. Without warning, he abandoned his Mars plans and never spoke about it again. No interviews, no press conferences, nothing. What did they really find on Mars? Why is no one talking about this?
Okay, so that is clearly not factual. Elon Musk is still talking about colonizing Mars. He's just a little preoccupied with other things that he's not, as rambunctious about it as he typically is, but I'm sure he's gonna get just as excited as he was before, because he's still doing all of these launch tests and everything of the super heavy rocket to try to make that happen. But those images are old. We've seen them before for a while. So yeah, nobody's scared of that. Nobody's scared of that. I don't think any of that is real. I think it's just a bunch of hullabaloo. All right, it is time for the next part of our alien abduction story.
Now, if you want to go out, I'll go out there and tell them that it just wouldn't work on you. You don't want to take this polygraph test. I said, man, I'm tired, give out. I want to get home. Give me the damn thing. So when he got through, in fact, he gave me 2 tests. And Fred Diamond, the sheriff, said when he got through and went on the outside, he said, that man is telling the damn truth in there. And then all the talk shows over the country wanted me there. And they like to drove me crazy, man. And Calvin, he went back, Jones County, back home where we came from. And he had a nervous breakdown. And they wouldn't even let me see him for 2 weeks in the hospital. So it just, that's how it all happened, you know.
Were you wearing a watch by chance when it happened?
No, I don't wear a watch because a watch won't keep time on me. Now, the reason I say it won't keep time on, I've tried every kind to be thought of. And when I was in Korea, we'd capture those North Koreans, the Chinese. They'd be took all kind of watches off the GIs. And I tried every kind of watch I could think of. They wouldn't keep correct time on me.
I'm just wondering if you knew how long that you had
No,
been.
he didn't. We don't know. We don't know. We went back several times and tried to reenact it, you know, how long it possibly could have been. It could have been 2 or 3 hours, or it could have been less than that. We don't know.
Now, you always hear about possibly like implants or something, some kind of device that they put on you. Have you ever been checked to see if when that thing was scanning you, that it put something in your skin or something like that? Or?
No, the only thing that got me concerned now, I use the VA hospital. They take care of all my needs. They found something on the back of my eyeball, like a little knot. And they don't know what a long time ago they found it. They don't know what this is. And they even sent me to New Orleans to a cancer doctor. They thought it might be a cancer in the back of the eyeball. And it's not changing. They check me every 6 months. And that could possibly be something they implanted in me. I don't know.
It's just like a sty or something like that?
No, it's on the back of my eyeball. I'm on the back side. It's like a little bump there. That's what they tell me, what the doctors tell me, you know.
Was this your first experience? You remember when you were younger, or even now? Are you still getting visited, or?
Well, I didn't know it at that time, but under hypnosis, I don't want to elaborate on this very much. I did find out that, yes, I had been contacted when I was young in Jones County years ago. And I'm not prepared to talk about that. And yes, I've been in contact a lot of times with them since then.
I absolutely love this story. Oh, it is so intriguing. Like, I am just glued to it. I want him to talk about what happened when he was hypnotized. I really want to know. And that thing in his eyeball, I wonder if that was like implanted on the first occurrence, because maybe there's some kind of like, not tracking device, but maybe it's like recording stuff that he sees, so that when he gets picked up again, they just download all of that information and they're like, hey, we have more stuff about earthlings, people, habits and stuff like that, so that they can like pretend to be us. Okay. This is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. I can't wait for the next part. We'll see it on Monday. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and then come on back in a couple of days, because we're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.